So we absolutely crushed it today. We ended up having 4 wins in a row, and then the final trade on the day was a small loss. With that being said, I'm going to be breaking down the trades. This is going to give you a much better understanding on how to trade price action, how to read market structure, how to trade supply and demand, what confirmations to use at the best levels within the game, how to confirm these best prices with the best setups, with the best confirmations. I'm going to be breaking it down to you. In terms of the stock market, it is going to be closed tomorrow, and then we're going to have a short day on Friday. With that being said, in terms of this video, it's mainly just going to be recapping the overall trades. Let's get straight into it. So in terms of today, we ended up having 4 wins in a row. G-Roar ended up going 3 for 3 on puts, all straight wins in a row. I ended up having 1 smaller win on calls. If I were to hold these calls, I would have made a 100% profit return. But I'm going to explain to you on why I ended up cutting it for a small win. With that being said, in terms of last night's video, I made it very, very clear that if the SPY gaps down, which it did end up doing, we had a small gap down. And if you're seeing $600 crack and react as a resistance, so if you just looked within the pre-market in the first 30 minutes within the market open gave it all away in terms of the confirmation. So go back and watch last night's video as well. But in terms of just reading market structure in general, you can see in the pre-market, we were starting to gap down and we were starting to crack under $600. And then the SPY was starting to turn this previous support here in the pre-market towards the previous closing price into a new lower high, into a new resistance. You had a breakdown of support right here. SPY cracked, spiked back up, turned that previous support level into a new lower high, a new resistance level, and it was consistently reversing at the gap after it cracked that support. And then in terms of bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmations, I made it very, very clear in terms of a foundation that if we gap down, it's likely going to be a bearish trend day. And in terms of the bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmations, if you just take a look at the 30-minute chart, you can visually see we had support here at 665. We had this nice drop to 599.58. It spiked back up, turned this previous support, which was at the previous closing price, for a gap close reversal into resistance, into resistance, into resistance. Red bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmation, red bearish trend reversal 30-minute candlestick confirmation, and shortly enough, it started to drop. So in terms of confirmations for puts, there was a confirmation in the pre-market. We cracked through the level. We gapped down. Red bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmation. Previous support into resistance. You could try puts it open. In terms of more confirmations, this is another trend reversal bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmation for a gap reversal, right? If you disable extended hours, you're going to see very, very clearly that we were simply reversing at the gap. And if you compare this 30-minute candlestick right here to this 30-minute candlestick right here at very similar prices, the SPY started to sell off to fill the gap below. Once the gap filled right here at 595.50 in a green bullish 30-minute candlestick confirmation ended up forming, the SPY had a reversal and it started to spike. And then as you can see, shortly enough, the same exact pattern happened. Once the SPY formed that green bullish 30-minute candlestick confirmation right here at the gap right here, which is the level that I told you to buy call options at in terms of the oversold levels. I made it very, very clear. If the market gaps down, if the market's reacting bearish below $600, it's going to start to drop to fill the gap below. Once we fill the gap, you're going to want to be buying call options. The strategy worked once again. I called out the trade in real time. I ended up cutting it for a small win. I made like a 15% profit return on the trade. If I would have held it, I would have made 100%. But in terms of just quickly recapping that, that's simple market structure. The game plan last night prepared you for the foundation that if we are going under 600, if we are seeing bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmations, we're going to be reversing out this gap. Then we're going to start to drop back down to fill this gap. Once we fill the gap, if you're seeing the 30-minute bullish candlestick confirmation, buy call options, right, for the gap reversal. So in a sense, we had back-to-back gap reversals. There was a gap right here, it reversed. There was a gap right here, it reversed, right? So in terms of the confirmation that we used, right? So I'm going to quickly show you in terms of the trade. I only ended up making 1 trade on the day in terms of my personal trading. As you can tell, I'm clearly waiting to trade the overall best setup at the best price. So G-Roar ended up calling out all the puts. I ended up calling out the call play literally towards the exact lows. So I ended up buying these $5.99 SPY calls at 30 cents a contract. And this was a phenomenal entry. So I got in at 12:25 p.m. right before that 30-minute candlestick ended up closing. So in terms of when I got in on the trade, right, this 30-minute candlestick, as you can see, so this opens up at 12 p.m., right? So in terms of the overall price action, I got in as soon as this 30-minute candlestick was closing green and bullish. And then you could see after I got in, we had a small little drop, and then the SPY continued to have a very nice strong move to the upside, bringing those calls from out of the money to in the money, right? So I bought them 1 point out of the money. If you would have held the trade, they went 1 point in the money. They ended up going from 23 cents to 60 cents a contract, right? I ended up selling for a very small win. I was literally averaging down on that trade because I was very confident in it. But with that being said, in terms of the confirmations, man, it's just so simple. I read the market structure. The SPY had a gap up, red bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmation. The SPY had a gap up. The SPY had a gap down, red bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmation. You had a slanted downtrend. And then you had a very similar pattern, right? I mean, if you just look at the comparison in terms of when the gaps filled, these two 30-minute candlesticks are very similar in a sense, right? Compared to these two 30-minute candlesticks. Once the gap filled, green bullish 30-minute candlestick confirmation, SPY starts to uptrend for an hour, SPY starts to uptrend for longer than an hour in this time, right? But in terms of the 30-minute candlestick confirmation, it's the same pattern that I've been teaching you, man. I keep on literally tagging the same exact confirmation, right? So if you go right here, you're going to see the pattern on 11/11. You're going to see the candlestick right here, 30-minute candlestick facing to the downside, 30-minute candlestick facing to the upside. That confirmation is an hour worth of price action, two 30-minute candlesticks, right? Next 30 minutes is going to be green and bullish. So if you compare this pattern right here to this pattern right here, is literally identical. 30-minute candlestick facing to the downside, 30-minute candlestick facing to the downside, 30-minute candlestick facing to the upside, 30-minute candlestick facing to the upside. Next 30 minutes is going to be green and bullish. So when the 1-minute candles, when the 5-minute candles start to drop into the next opening of that 30-minute candlestick, we're buying call options on the dip, expecting the next 30 minutes to be strong and bullish. As you can see right here, it started to dip. It was opening up red, and then it closed strong and bullish. And then it continued the overall uptrend, right? So this confirmation has literally never failed me. It's working nonstop. You use this 30-minute candlestick pattern, 1 hour's worth of price action, two 30-minute candlesticks in a row at the key levels, and it works nonstop. If you go back and watch throughout my trade recaps, you're going to see throughout the past 2 months, this pattern has occurred literally 4 times. So if you're using the patterns at the levels, losing is literally a choice. If you're red overall throughout the past 2 months, it means you're overtrading. You're not using the strategies. This is consistently working and making money. I literally told you the same pattern is going to continue to repeat. We're using it nonstop at the key levels. This was the best time you could have used it in terms of confirmation. We recently reversed at the gap. SPY's been reversing at the gaps throughout the past 2 months. It's been working over 95% of the time. And then we take our deck of cards and we apply the 30-minute candlestick confirmation at the gap, and SPY reverses at the gap. These are the strategies I created. I combined the 30-minute candlestick pattern that I've noticed trading within the market as a confirmation at the gap reversal, right? You're going to see throughout the history of this channel, when I created the gap close reversal trading strategy and when I first started trading it, I was not confirming it with 30-minute candles. It took me some time to figure out what works best in terms of confirmation. And the beauty of the 30-minute candlestick patterns, is they give you the opportunity to hold the trades longer for bigger wins. I've tested all of the time frames, and I found in terms of pattern recognition and confirmation and a great balance of holding trade for a longer win, the 30-minute candlestick chart is a perfect balance of a longer time frame, and it works. The reason why I use it is because it works so well, man. Just look at this. And there was another pattern. Look at this green bullish 30-minute candle. So you have this red candle right here. You have this red candle right here. Green bullish 30-minute candlestick confirmation. Green bullish 30-minute candlestick confirmation. This slanted uptrend, right, for 120 minutes. Slanted uptrend for 120 minutes. Test the wick. Then it starts to pull back. Test the wick right here. Then it has a small little drop. Right? So those were all the confirmations for calls. Now, in terms of the reason for me cutting the trade so quickly, like I said, man, it was a small win. The main reason why I cut it was I was still bullish. And I told people, the profit target is up here towards 598.70. So the profit target hit. Some of them held and they were getting out in the 45-cent range, for like a 50% plus profit return. But the reason why I decided to get out in terms of how I played it, it was taking too long to happen, and I was lacking that overall patience. These past 2 days, I did not like, in terms of the price action, how we've been moving overall. right? Buying far out of the money option contracts has been, tougher in terms of this overall slower week, right? But with that being said, when I was in this trade, the 598 calls that were literally at the money or barely in the money at the time, they were already going up from 60 cents to 80 cents. If I would have just bought those at the money calls, I would have been up a lot more on those 599 calls, but I did not do that, right? I was trying to go out of the money, play for the bigger win, hold a little bit longer. But with that sense, I just got tired of holding it. So when I got out, I told myself I'm still bullish and the profit target remains there, but I would feel a lot more safer if the SPY were to drop those 598 calls out of the money and we could drop them, drop it back down to like under 50 cents, then I think that trade idea would be a lot better and then just go with those in a sense and hold the trade. But I didn't get back in because SPY did not go back under 598. And once I got out, it just continued to go up. So it was just one of those trades in a sense where, I didn't want to take that risk of just holding the trade for a longer period of time. And I felt more comfortable if the SPY were to drop and have a dip, right? Then I just get back in with the 598 strike. So that was the main reasoning in terms of cutting the play. It had to do with the overall price action. It had to do with the overall strike price. And it was just one of those plays where, for me, I would have been a lot more comfortable if the SPY, in terms of how we were moving with the smaller moves, I just wanted to retake the trade in a sense if the SPY drops back down and brings those 598 calls out of the money. Because if that were to happen, and I was seeing signals on the 1 minute chart where that could potentially happen, those 599 calls would have easily dropped over 50%, right? So in a sense, I could have just held it, trim size. One of the reasons it kind of spooked me out as well, I kept on adding very, very heavily to it. But in a sense, man, in that situation, I could have just, taken size off, leave small runners, and then if SPY drops under 598 and those contracts take a hit, I could just buy 598 calls. Or I can just cut the trade and then just hope for a better trade, which would have been if SPY dropped back under 598. Just go with the 598 calls. They would have went up a lot more than those 599 calls, right? Because the overall profit target was basically at the money. It wasn't designed to go deep in the money, but I didn't want to buy 598 calls in the money. I wanted to go out of the money. So that explains in a sense, in terms of like how I saw it, right? So with that being said, man, in terms of the trades, so that was the trade that I ended up making on the day. It was a phenomenal over trade if you hold it. Like I said, I got out for a small win, like a 15% return, I think. But in terms of the trades that we made in the morning, we played puts. I told you guys, in terms of the game plan, if we gap down, if we're going under $600, we're buying puts. Look at these 3 wins in a row on puts. Who do you know is doing this? Every single day, the morning trades, nearly every single morning, the trades are green. And these are the biggest wins within the market. So at 9:35 a.m., we ended up buying 599 SPY puts for 64 cents a contract, right? So if we go to 599 puts and you go to 9:35 a.m., you're going to see this is where we ended up getting on the trade. We got in on these puts towards the exact lows right here at 9:35 a.m., right? And you could see they went from 60 cents all the way to 200 a contract, right? That's literally a fucking 200% plus profit return on that overall trade. In terms of where we ended up getting profit stopped out, we ended up getting profit stopped out right here towards this exact short-term peak in the $100 contract range, all alerted 100% in the real time, right? So we're starting off the day in the green, literally nearly as always. You can just walk away, call it for the rest of the day, right? 1 to 2 wins in a row should be good enough, especially if the first one is a big win, to call it for the day. And once you're up enough, you risk 25 to 50% of your max gains. If you choose to continue to trade, you don't. So inside of Team Roar, you can literally call it within the first overall 30 minutes. But as you can see, man, we were adding to the winners. So, we kept on adding, double the position size, add in the 60 cent range, in the 57 cent range, and they went all the way to 180 a contract. So that trade, especially since we're adding, was more than green enough for you to call it on the overall day, man. I'm telling you, inside of Team Roar, nearly every single morning, the trades are green. There's usually like 1 to 2 wins every single morning, right? So this works. And you can see right here in terms of the next overall trade, right? Let's buy 598 SPY puts for 60 cents a contract. This was at 11:25 a.m. So we're back in on puts. I'm going to walk you through this right here at 11:25 a.m. So if we go to 598 puts, I'm going to show you this is where we ended up getting in. We ended up getting in right here, very, very close towards the bottom. And this quickly went up to 120 a contract. With that being said, in terms of where we ended up getting out on that overall trade, as you can see right here, I'm going to break this down for you. So we ended up getting in at 60 cents a contract. And as you can see, we ended up getting out and setting the overall profit stops towards the exact peak when this was at 114 cents a contract, second win on the day. Then we had my third win on the day. Some people held it for the bigger overall win. And then in terms of the third win, this was fucking phenomenal, man. Look at this. SPX puts at the exact lows during the power hour trading session. So we ended up buying 59990 SPX puts for 70 cents a contract and quickly adding, right? So literally every time we're adding, it just tends to work out, especially when we're adding into the wins. But you could see, man, as soon as we got in these SPX 5990 SPX puts for 70 cents a contract at 3:33 p.m., I'm gonna show you. We got in at the exact lows, and then they quickly spiked to 200 cents a contract. These are the puts right here. We bought towards the exact lows in the 50-cent range. They went from 50 cents all the way to 230 cents within just 10 minutes of trading. That was another phenomenal win. That trade went up over 300% plus profit return. So losing is a personal choice, man. That's 4 for 4. And then the final trade, it was the cheapest, lowest risk overall trade on SPY calls, and that one simply didn't work out. But if you have 4 wins in a row, you're more than green enough where if you choose to keep on trading, that you just can't flip red. So like I said, man, 1 to 2 trades should be green enough for you to walk away for the day. 1 trade should be good enough if it's a big win, if it's like over 100% plus profit return. And if you decide that you want to keep on trading, right, you risk 25 to 50% of your gains at most. If you lose and you hit that max threshold of 25 to 50%, you have to walk away and you cannot trade, because from there, then you'll be risking going green to red, which is something that we do not do, which is another reason why we set profit stops. So we absolutely crushed it. With that being said, for those of you who would like to trade alongside with us on Friday, it's going to be the first link down below within the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for further more updates. We're going to have new updates on the new levels within the overall next video, right? So in terms of our community, we have an amazing trading community. If you're serious about joining it, it's the first link down below within the description. We have many members. And what we do differently is we trade 0-date options on SPY, SPX, top 10 holdings on SPY, especially on Friday, when a lot of the stocks have their 0-date options expiring. And we have the highest win rate in the game doing this. We are known for buying cheap, far out of the money option contracts. We're known for selling them deep in the money for the biggest percentage gains, right? And in terms of the system, we do not use stop losses. The contracts are so cheap, so low risk, you can put in your entire position size as your max risk per trade. Therefore, if it goes to 0, you know exactly what you're going to lose, what you put into the options, your max risk per trade, which could be a couple % of your account, right? So we don't need to have stop losses in terms of our risk management system. And another reason why we're able to win is because we don't use stop losses, right? So trading these contracts, a stop loss is not needed or required. It's very cheap, very low risk, right? You can literally put in your entire position size as your max risk per trade, let it expire worthless, let it go to 0. Another cutting edge part about the system is we have the entire day for these out of money options to go in the money. We can hold these contracts for the entire day. They go in the money. We start to sell in the money for profits, right? So we're known for holding the trades for longer periods of time. We don't use stop losses, but we do set profit stops, right? If you set a stop loss, you're going to lose. You're going to get stopped out for a loss, especially with far the money option contract, right? You have to time these nair perfectly if you're going to be using a stop loss. But if you don't use a stop loss, you don't need to time them nairly perfectly. Every single time we choose to not cut our loss when we're down 50% on a dead play, 70% of the time it comes back to life and it goes in the money. But if we would have been stopped out, we would have been experiencing a loss instead of holding for the win in the money, right? So it allows you to hold by removing that stop loss and by risking less, and you're able to win so big because the percentage gains are the biggest percentage gains within the market. So the serious gains are coming from the percentage gains that we're experiencing, not from the dollars that we're putting in. But when we do add, that helps in terms of the dollars putting in. And when we add, the way we protect that overall win, we like to add to winners and we like to set profit stops. When we're up a little bit and we decide to add, the winning tends to go in our favor. So for us, small wins is like 5, 10, 20%. So when we're up a small amount, we set those profit stops and we add to the position as well at times when we get a winning confirmation. And then, we're up like 5, 10, 20%. The play can go up 100%, multiple 100% profit returns. Every single month, we have 3, 1,000% gainers, right? So with that being said, we move the profit stop up higher to ensure that we don't go green to red, to ensure that we don't get back the bulk of our gains, right? We got to protect our new average cost. So that's what we do differently in a nutshell. You're going to see when you join this community, we have the best 0-date options trading community within the overall market. You're going to see, man, we have many members who are making $500 a day, $1,000 a day. We have some members who are making $10,000 plus a week. We have some members who are making over 6 figures a month trading 0-date options. Rich people prefer to do this because You risk less, you pay less on your contracts and premiums, and you experience bigger percentage gains by holding these contracts, selling in the money. And it also allows you to remove the stop loss, right? So we're doing the complete opposite of what everybody else is doing. It is going to take time, for those of you who decide to join, to adjust to this overall platform and to this overall system. Obviously, it's not going to work out for everyone, but I can assure you, we have many members where this format, this platform that we do have is working for them, and they are consistently making money within the overall market. So if you are serious about trading alongside with us, it is the first link down below within the description. When you're trading alongside us, you're also going to start to learn how to trade by trading, because that's how you learn how to trade. You actually fucking trade. And if you trade alongside us, you're going to see exactly how it is that we're trading. I mean, if you just look, I'm literally showing members exactly why I entered the trade. It says right here, SPY is reversing at the 597.5 gap with bullish trend reversal, 30-minute confirmation, hold calls for 30 minutes. This is the best setup. Surely enough, 30-minute candlestick closed green. And we gave further updates. The profit target was likely going to hit. I gave the profit target, and the profit target tends to hit, man. So for those of you who held, the bigger win was there, man. But like I said, it was just one of those situations where, in terms of the calls, with the current market conditions, I felt more comfortable just getting out for a small win and then hoping that the SPY drops back under 598. That way I can buy those closer in the money option contracts extremely cheaper and then sell them deep in the money. I'm not the biggest fan of buying out of money option contracts when the profit target isn't designed for them to go deep in the money. When I'm going further out of the money, I really like to have the overall profit target at the bare minimum, at least in the money. My profit target was at 598.70. So I'm thinking to myself, man, if we go back under 598, these contracts are going to get absolutely fucking destroyed. And the theta came the way the market's moving, I'm just going to play it safe, hope it drops under 598, and then just get it on a closer strike. And they'll be a lot cheaper with the theta decay and the time and all that. Unfortunately, it did not drop back down, but the strategy worked out to an exact T, right? And like I said, if I would have just went with those 598 calls in a sense, I would have been up enough to literally just not even, trade again in terms of my own personal trading, because those went from 60 to 80 cents. That's a very nice win. That's nearly 50%. That's like, 40%, right around 40% profit return, right? If I would just went with that strike. But I went a little bit further out of the money and it was only a 15% return. But if I would have held, it's like 100% profit return. So it is what it is, man. It happens, man. Got to be able to adapt and adjust. And sometimes the market's going to give you the move that you want. Like I said, when you're trading options, it's a bit more complex with overall market conditions. But, we've been adapting accordingly with this overall slower price action. And we've still been managing to crush it. Like I said, man, we had 3 wins in a row on puts. Who do you know is doing this, man? On a slower day like today, who do you know is buying SPX puts at 50 cents, at 70 cents a fucking contract, selling at 200? That's 200% plus profit return right there. And then before that, we have 100% win on puts, 100% win on puts. I made it very, very clear in last night's video what to fucking do. And shortly enough, we're fucking doing it. We were playing puts all fucking day. And then we were playing calls at the fucking gap. You couldn't have really gotten a better confirmation to be buying calls at the fucking gap, man. So this works, man. You have to use the levels and use what I teach you. If you think you're just going to read a fucking title or just blindly trade a level, you're not going to get anywhere, man. This is you have to trade the best setups at the overall best prices. You have to use the confirmations. You have to know how to actually trade. We can have some sort of bias where maybe we're more bullish or bearish at an overall level. But if the confirmation's not there, then it's going to do the opposite. That level that could be considered a bullish bias is now going to be bearish because there's a bearish confirmation. And then vice versa, right? You have to actually learn how to fucking trade. That's what some people don't understand when they're watching these overall key levels videos, man. People who just blindly follow and don't use confirmations, don't know how to trade overall structure. But over here, we actually trade. We trade at the fucking levels and it works. We use the best confirmations, man. You understand? My first trade on the day, like that's just 101 educational based setup. That's what I teach, man. In terms of, some trades, I trade purely based just off my heart, if it's there and the intuition is there. And then other trades, I trade purely based off of education. The best ones are when you have both in a sense, right? But if you're trading purely based off of education, the intuition might not be there. You might just be more technical in certain situations, right? But the best ones tend to be when the intuition and heart is there. But the point is, man, who the fuck do you know is doing that? I have the perfect game plan. I have the perfect confirmation that I've been teaching you nonstop throughout these fucking videos. And it's at the gap, and it reverses exactly at the fucking gap. You're going to see, if you study throughout the evolution of this channel, on how I've evolved the gap close reversal trading strategy. I used to use the 1 minute and 5 minute chart, and I used to sell for smaller wins. Now we're using higher time frames as a confirmation and we're holding for overall bigger wins. I explained to you why I didn't hold for bigger wins. Look, man, if I was in 598 fucking calls when they were out of the money and cheap, I would have fucking held. It's just the confirmation didn't form when they were out of the money, which is why I was hoping for it to drop back down under 598. But by the time I got out, it didn't drop back down, and then it just kept on fucking going up. Of course, it is what it is, right? It happens. But the point is, the education worked, man, and the play was fucking there. The market isn't always going to give you that perfect opportunity with the overall options, but the play was fucking there. And we had people hold it, and it worked out to a fucking T, man. So that pattern that I taught you worked to an exact T. If you used last night's video, the way we used it, like I said, everyone uses levels and videos differently. You know, some people, they just blindly trade at levels. It's like sheep. They just think like, oh, this level's bullish, this level's bearish. We're just going to get in right here. They don't use confirmation, right? And you need to understand there could be a bullish level, some sort of bias, but we're not going to blindly trade a bias. That would be more of like an automation level. You rarely hear me say in terms of the analysis, like an automated level, that's just a level where you just get the fuck in. That's very, very rare, right? And even on automated levels, I encourage you to use some sort of confirmation, right? But if you use the levels and you know how to actually trade and use the confirmations, you should be going green nearly every single fucking day. I mean, if you see in our group, we're winning nearly every single fucking day. It's just nonstop fucking winning, man. The wins are always outweighing the losses. 1,000% trade outweighs 18%, 50% losses in a fucking row. We've turned trading into a percentage gain. 1,000% win. We have 3 of them every single month, right? You can have 50% losses in a row and still be fucking green. Losing's a personal fucking choice, man. We're taking this as the long game, and I would encourage you to use the levels, use confirmations to confirm at the overall levels, whether it's going to be bullish or bearish, right? You could have some sort of bias in advance in foundations. That's completely fine. But understand where price is heading. You know, we could have a bullish level, but if there's a bearish confirmation, do we want to buy puts? We might not want to buy puts because it's a shitty level to try puts where there's not much upside potential, right? You got to know the ladder in terms of the confirmations. But this was just a phenomenal opportunity, man, to be playing puts with the red bearish 30-minute candlestick confirmations. Everything I teach you where it's reversing at the higher gap right here, and then it's reversing at the lower gap right here. Everything I said within the video literally worked to a T if you use the confirmations. So if you're not using the confirmations at the overall levels, then you know you're likely just going red. You have to use the confirmations. This works. If you're in Team Roar, I mean, you'll see we're literally trading exactly at the levels with the best confirmations. So if you're serious about trading alongside with us, and like I said, we call this out in real time. So like I said, this is how I use my fucking video. I don't know how you use the fucking video, but this is how I used it. As soon as the 30-minute candlestick is closing, I'm saying this is fucking bullish. This is the pattern I've been teaching you non-fucking stop. That's the confirmation at the fucking gap, highlighting every fucking thing out for you, right? I don't know if everyone sees it this way, but I do know this shit fucking works. So if you want to make money, it's the first link down below within the description. With that being said, you guys have a phenomenal holiday. I'm going to be signing off. I will see you within the chat.